Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Yo, what's poppin', Rush Nation? Welcome back to the Flagship show. It's a gloriously sunny Thursday evening here in the UK. Thank you for joining us on the live stream. If you are an audio participant, why don't you come over? Excuse me. Come over, join us on the video because you get to see us in all our glory. And at the moment, it's the golden hour. Just look at me. I'm absolutely resplendent. Big man, how are you?
I am all grand. It's been a week and a half, it feels like, but it is still only Thursday. There is still time to save the week, win the week, whatever.
Save the week.
Whatever you're trying to achieve out there. But yeah, lots of things. I mean, it's been a massive week when you really think about what's been going on. Not so much with the NFL, but in the world, we've elected a new American pope, and Chicago has elected a pope before it's got a quarterback that's thrown over 4,000 yards in a season, which is just wild. You have the fact that the pope was selected in a day less than Shedeur Sanders in the NFL draft. These are all just coming up on social media. I can't take credit for these jokes. They are out there, and I'm stealing them, and why not? But it is obviously, a lot of things. It's VE Day today, which is 80 years. So for anyone listening who ever served or has family members who ever served, we salute them, remember them on this momentous occasion. The trade deals that have been handed out this week. There's so much going on in the world, and for the first time, it feels like positive news is dominating more than negative news, which is quite a nice place to be. So we'll hail that with the sun shining. We're in May. And we were getting to that quiet bit of the season now where the NFL news kind of drops off, although there's been quite a lot in the last 24 hours, which we will get to and visit really shortly. So, it's now about drafts, best ball drafts, rookie drafts. It's a good time to be alive, man. What can I say?
Yeah, it's draft season has well and truly begun. I think I've done 5, which is 5 too many for me at this time of the year. I like to do them later, but everybody's got that bug now. They've got there's assets available for their dynasty teams and best ball teams, and I say best ball teams. It's new every year, but yeah, it's the bug is well and truly locked in now. And oh man, I've got the 101 in a league where running backs are stupidly expensive, right? I've got Ashton Genty locked in as my 101. I've also got the 105. And I've potentially been offered 3 first-round picks for Genty, which would be the 103 this year plus a 10-something next year and a 10-something the year after. So do I draft Ashton Genty and then Ted McMillan or Travis Hunter if he falls, which I hugely doubt? Or do I draft potentially Travion Henderson, Krishan Judkins, or RJ Harvey and Travis Hunter, and then have a pick in 26, 27? What do you?
That's a lot of information to go through in a short space of time.
Basically, I won the league last year, stacked picks, so my team's stacked. Do I draft Ashton Genty and then Ted McMillan, or do I draft any of the running backs not named Genty or Hampton, and Travis Hunter?
Well, you say it's an RB heavy league. Obviously, I'd need to know the scoring, which makes it difficult.
Basically, the wide receiver 1 comes in at about running back 18.
Then you got to take Genty. If you can get Genty and then follow that up with the 105, so you're likely to get Henderson, that feels like that's you at the position for the next few years.
Yeah.
If the wide receiver one is the RB18, then what's the point of taking McMillan?
Because you have to start 3 anyway, and my wide receivers are aging.
Yeah, but you can get them next year if you've got picks next year.
got one next year. I'm just thinking I've got double shot at Jeremiah Smith next year, potentially.
There you go. Something to think about. I would
Yeah.
probably Ginty given the scoring, but
I mean, I fully agree, and I've been locked in. I've never picked 101 ever apart in a dynasty league, and it's not even my pick, but I've got it, so I'm quite tempted just to pull the trigger and say I've done it. Which, hey, why are we talking rookies? Because today we're doing rookie ADP, but before that, Murph mentioned some news. Murph, the news.
There's three bits of news that have happened the last 24 hours. First of all, George Pickens has gone to the Dallas Cowboys for a 3rd round pick. It does make me question the 2022 Steelers draft. The 2022 Steelers draft might be one of the worst drafts of all time on the back of this news. Well, I'm going to read out their 2022 draft class. So you're talking about this is 3 drafts ago, 3 years. We're not talking a long time here. It's not like we're going back 10 years, 20 years. Round 1, selection 20, Kenny Pickett.
Carry on.
So he's on the Cleveland Browns after winning a Super Bowl with Philadelphia and gone inside of 2 years. 2nd round, pick 52, George Pickens. Well, they've just traded him for a 3rd. Round 3, pick 84, DeMarvin Leal, DT. He is still on the team. He started 0 games last year, played 5 games. He has started, I think, less than 10 games for the Steelers in 3 years.
Okay.
They had 2 picks in the 4th. The first one they traded to Miami. The second one they took Calvin Austin III, who we have barely seen in the league. So that hasn't quite worked out. 5th round pick was traded to the New York Jets. Their first 6th round pick 198, was traded to Jacksonville. Their second 6th round pick, they took Connor Haywood, who caught 10 passes, I believe, last year. And then I don't know the states of these players, but I can't imagine that I'm particularly hopeful on either of these. Round 7, pick 225, Mark Robinson, linebacker out of Ole Miss. I don't know if he's still on the roster or not. Pick 241, Chris Oludokun from South Dakota State. I don't think he's on the roster. He might be. I don't actually know. But that's a pretty poor draft that you've got. You know, these players that you've selected in a window where you're trying to get better, and the most productive player you had out of this draft, George Pickens, you've just traded for a 3rd. The second most productive player in Calvin Austin III. I mean, I have to look out what he has done, but I can't imagine it's a ridiculous heap of stats that he's put up. In 3 years, 53 receptions, 728 yards. In 3 years. So,
great.
And not a lot back. You know, they got nothing for Kenny Pickett. They got like a late round pick for him, 3rd round pick for Pickens. It just isn't great. So pretty poor return from the Steelers there. And they're one of the better front offices in the NFL. And everyone has bad drafts. But, you know, if you think about the Buccaneers, for example, so the Buccaneers have taken 38 players between 2019 and 2024. So we're not including this current draft class. Of the 38 players they drafted, all 38 were on NFL rosters at the end of last season.
That's a good return.
And most of them are still with the Bucs. So of the starting players on the Bucs, the only players they didn't draft were Baker Mayfield. Who was it? It was Baker Mayfield, one of the tackles, one of the D-line, and I think that might be it. It was like 3 or 4 players of the starting roster or starting lineup that weren't drafted. So it's quite, you know, not trying to toot the horn of the Bucs here, but it's quite stark that you can see some teams draft really, really well consistently, and you've got some teams who who do struggle. And I don't think Pittsburgh struggle consistently, but this is where almost they're victims of their own success, where they're picking late every single round. So it's an interesting trade. I know that Cowboys fans are really excited for George Pickens. I've actually marked in my projections Pickens down on what I thought he would do in Pittsburgh this year. I think going to a new team with a new system, I don't know how healthy Dak Prescott is. That's obviously a question that I'll need to see an answer to and see how he adapts to that system. I don't think it's a system that will play particularly brilliantly for him, is my initial scheme thinks it's a question mark, but there could be a lot of change there within the next 12 months, and it might get better forward. Obviously, if you were trying to buy Jalen Tolbert assets in March, thinking he was going to be the wide receiver 2, you've pretty much lost all the value on those. And if you were trying to ship him and hadn't already, you've pretty much lost all value on Jalen Tolbert. His floor is just gone. It's just his value's just hit the floor. So, I think it's an interesting trade. Do I think in real life that makes the Cowboys better? Yeah, probably. In fantasy, do I think it moves the needle a lot? No, I think it maybe helps Dak Prescott a tad. I think that Pickens is narrowed down, but I think overall it kind of comes out in the wash. We're still waiting to see what happens, obviously, with the Pittsburgh Steelers at quarterback. We still don't have an answer on what that looks like just yet.
Yes.
So that was the first piece of news, and we've had 2 bits of news come out of Carolina this afternoon. The first is that former first overall pick Jadeveon Clowney has been released. So he signed a 2-year, $20 million deal last year in free agency. So he has been released. So I'm sure there's a significant cap hit to that. Interesting move. I'm not quite sure why you would do that now, because there isn't going to be options out there to make your team better. So, and I doubt he would have been in for like OTAs or anything. So I'm really curious on the timing. Like, if they made this decision in February, I think, okay, that, they've moved on. They're going to go and get a replacement in free agency. I don't really know what Carolina are thinking here. Because I'm just reviewing their draft, and I can't remember if they took a replacement in the draft.
I don't know.
If they did, I'm not sure that they're set on ready to go.
They're not Clowney ready to go anyway.
I mean, Scrouton. They did take Scrouton, didn't? Scrouton could do it, but I'm not too sure. Potentially, but I mean, even so, and they did take a third. They did take another outside linebacker, so they did fill that room a little bit. But with rookies, it's interesting to see what they do there. So I have a little bit of weirdness to that, but I mean, Clowney is coming to the end of his career. I guess you have to sit there and evaluate how much he's going to give you. But I think the timing is just a little bit weird. I don't think they make any significant saving doing that now. But there you go. And then the other piece of news out of Carolina is Jonathan Brooks has been placed on the PUP. He is out for 2025. Now, that's not probably a big surprise, but it is official that he will not play in 2025. And I would say that's probably the end of his NFL career.
You've got to imagine so with the list of history, the injury history. In the NFL, it's just poor kids. But yeah, we've seen who have we seen recently? The quarterback from Utah, Cam Rising. He's been told, not to play anymore because of his hand injury, and then we've seen it. Who else did we see retired from the NFL? The Jets quarterback Hunter, Travis Hunter. No.
Not Travis.
Who am I thinking? He played for FSU.
Oh, Jordan Travis.
Yes. Just that's confusing. Jordan Travis, yeah, he's retired from the NFL as well, and he hasn't even played a game. So
no.
Yeah, not great.
No, it's difficult one. It is difficult, but I think the hard thing for say Travers and for Brooks is that they're not going to get the pension that you're going to get from being in the NFL.
Yeah.
So I'm just reading up the detail on Clowney. They are going to save 7.8 million in cap, but they had cap covered. So they're still taking a dead charge of 6 mil, but they're going to save 7.8 mil. I guess my thought is I would have waited a little bit longer before you release him. I don't see what benefit you would have had. I know it's approaching Q1, so actually, does it make a lot of difference? 3 weeks? Probably not. Probably save less after June 1. So I guess it probably makes a little bit more sense. They've drafted who they wanted. Maybe that's why they held on, and maybe this was the plan. Maybe I'm not giving them enough credit, but I always think that's a dangerous plan to start with the rookies there. Then, you got experienced play. They have cap space. I don't think they need the cap space unless they're working on some mega trade. But even then, I'd struggle to think that the cap would come into factor. But anyway, that's the news out of Carolina. That's the latest news in the NFL at the moment. It is going to be a bit quiet for the next few weeks now because you got rookie camps, OTAs coming on, and then you're going to have this sort of summer break coming on. So it is going to be really quiet unless there are any trades sort of following up here. But I guess we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. There will be some roster moves, I imagine, over the coming weeks, but I don't expect there to be too many. I think we're starting to get a picture now for what these teams are going to look like. It's really exciting, and over the coming weeks, we'll start to evaluate the changes in coaching staff across teams, and we're going to bring on a great guest for that. And we're going to start evaluating, we talk about it on this show. I don't think anyone else does, what the changes at offensive coordinator and head coach and scheme is going to do for teams. And I think that's something that gets greatly overlooked. And we did that show last year with Jim Coventry, and we talked a number of times about how important some of these changes are. And we got some big hits in fantasy drafts because we were able to project what schemes were going to look like and where we saw opportunities in fantasy drafts. Now, some of those were capped a little bit with injury, but we still had the process was right. And it was looking good for a good part of the season when we analyzed these offenses and where we thought they were going to track. And we did have a lot of hits last year with that. So, we'll do that again and make sure that our listeners are ready for that. So I think that's kind of where we are planning now and starting to get a view of what all these teams are going to do in 2025, because that's what's going to give us our edge. I know everyone's in rookie mode right now, and we're going to do a bit of rookies here for sure. But I also think that people tend to forget about these sort of wholesale changes that have occurred, and actually they're the things that we will focus on because they're the differentiators for us, that we see opportunity value that allows us to get ahead.
Yeah, that's I enjoy that one as well because it brings me up to speed. Because I don't particularly. I'm not as plugged into that side of it as you are. So it's nice for me to be able to think, oh yeah, actually that's just as much as Rush Nation do, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to call myself an expert in schemes and schematics, right? I don't think I am. If I was, I'd have a job in the NFL, right? But I do have a good feel for how teams are going to play, and I really study the game and how it's played, and the way that teams are going to utilize their tools and their weapons. And that does work in two ways. That finds opportunities, but it also gets us away from landmines. I did a show this week on the Nat Coombs podcast, which hasn't dropped yet. I thought it would have dropped by now, talking about quarterback fits for these rookies that are coming in, and talked about the scheme that they're walking into, what the fit looks like for that. And it was born out of my previous appearance on there in March, where I said that Shedeur Sanders is a 4th round pick. Not based on talent, but based on schematical fit, I didn't find there was a place for him in the teams that needed a quarterback. And so I said, for me, he was a 4th round pick. And, that turned out to be more accurate than him going at the top of the board where a lot of analysts had. And I think depending on, I'm not saying I'm the greatest analyst because there's so many things I get wrong and lots of people get right and vice versa. But I think for me, when the evaluation of players comes out, people get so wedded to the evaluation of the player, they don't think about how it's going to work with the scheme. And they assume that every front office has a plan for players. I actually don't think that's the case. And speaking to the likes of Michael Lombardi when he was on here a few years ago and Ross Tucker, and we've spoken to ex-players in the NFL in the past in the archives of the show, I actually think that sometimes people just take best player available and they work the rest of it out later. And sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it does. And then you've also got to evaluate teams that are on the hot seat that could turn over a year from now. And so manifesting, and we'll talk about this when we get to a particular player in the first round of rookie drafts, that I will stay away from at all costs, because I just think there's too much risk to put a first round pick in on him because of the risk of the clearing house and there being a change of coach, a change of system, and it doesn't work. But we'll get to it now. But I think that's why it's important.
Okay. Well, let's do it. Let's get to that right now. We're talking rookie ADP. Murph, this ADP in front of me, where is it from?
It's a combination of sources. It's utilizing Fantasy Pros. It's utilizing, which has its own sources. It's using DLF. It's using Football Guys. It's using Dynasty Nerds, and it's using, try to remember all the few PF. There's a bit of PFF stuff in here as well. Fantasy Life with Matthew Berry, and I've also taken some data that Draft Sharks, and also from some Reddit forums as well. Not always the best source, but it does give you some context in there for sure.
So with that being said, this is a pretty severe list of all the heavy hitters ADPs currently across fantasy football.
And it's amalgamated, right? So it's going to look wonky, right? And so it's going to look weird to some. It's going to look a little bit different than if you're just doing all your rookie drafts on Sleeper. Sleeper's in here, by the way. It is going to look a little different to if you're just drafting on one platform. Well, that's not what's happening in my league. I totally get that. It's super flex as well. I just think it was good to amalgamate all the different sources and see what the numbers are coming out as. So this is where it is. It's just giving you a feel. And I guess really the point of the exercise here is just to look and say, are these players worth where they're going? Is there ones you'd be willing to reach out for? Are there ones you're willing to move back for, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, anybody who isn't living under a rock that's placed under a bigger rock that's under a rock in a walled enclosure would know that Ashton Genty's the 101, right? That's locked in all day, every day, unless somebody offers you every pick like the Saints did for the next 25 years for one player, and then you take that because the value's incredible. Anything to add about Genty, or should we move on down until we get to something you see as...
No, I think we've covered a lot of these players anyway, so I think like everyone kind of understands that Genty's the 101. A lot of people are paying a lot of capital to get up to 101. I'm not of that sort. I wouldn't, just because I think that Hampton is almost, if not just as good, and therefore I'm quite happy to pay the discount to get Hampton. But I understand that people are paying the clamor. I've seen some ridiculous offers for Genty, so people are paying a lot of capital to get him. So I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, obviously we've got Amari and Hampton at 2 here. As Murph said, on his cards, basically as good as Genty, so one or t'other. Travis Hunter's at 3. Potentially, if he was a pure wide receiver, he could go 101 in Dynasty, just because of the generational talent, but we've got him at 3 here, Murph.
I would say that if you're in an IDP league, there's every chance he could go above G&T because you get the points at. If he's going to be classed as a cornerback, to have his points at cornerback or DB could be really like a cheat code.
Yeah, he went 101 in my IDP league.
Yeah, and I get it, right? If he's going to be classed as a wide receiver DB, then, I think that's the case of the alternative to 101 would be in those IDP leagues because you're going to get elite production and a position that won't produce points like that. He'll be such a massive separator from the rest of the class.
Yeah,
or the rest
I was drafting at 5 and I was licking my lips because IDP is grossly undervalued in this league I'm in. People aren't really aware of the IDP. And he went 101. I was like, I thought there was a real chance I was going to, because it's Superflex as well.
It's plugged in.
So, yeah, it's plugged in. Cam Ward's at 4, Superflex. That's a pretty reasonable spot for Cam Ward to go.
I think a couple of these are interchangeable, right? So I think for me, McMillan, Ward, and Henderson, those three kind of interchange, depending on the league you're on and depending on need. But I think all three kind of can be anywhere in between. I would say here the top two are the top two, barring any significant changes. I can see a world where you put Hunter at 2, and I wouldn't kill you for it, but I think for me it's the 2. I'd put Hunter underneath. Unless you're in an IDP league, then he's above the other 2. And then I think these three kind of they clump together. I probably wouldn't plump for Ward. I'm not as bullish on Ward as others are. I think it's a good fit. I think he'd do well, but I think he's a QB1 in fantasy football in the next 3 years? No. I think he's close. I think he's fine. In a Superflex league, which we're talking about here, it makes a bit more sense. But I still don't think he's a QB1. I think he is a sort of like an in-between there. And in the Superflex league, that's fine. There's some value to that. But I don't think he's going to be reaching the peaks of the sort of CJ Stroud rookie year or what we saw some of the quarterbacks do last year, etc. So I think he just falls into a big chunk of players. And that's not a bad thing if you're needing a quarterback. But yeah, I think 4, 5, and 6 is interchangeable. I think Henderson could be really, really interesting. So I don't mind that at all.
So that takes us to 107. We got Quinton Judkins. Potential workhorse roll straight out the gate.
Yeah, I like it at 107. I think there's some great value there. I actually think that he presents extremely good value, especially with the tumultuary at the quarterback position. I actually think he represents some decent value. I still think you've got Ford there. They've drafted another running back, so there is some questions as to whether he gets the full workload. But yeah, I like the value here at 107. I'd be quite happy to plump that and take it here.
Yeah, then we've got Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland. No surprise, 2 absolute monsters at tight end. We've seen what Brock Bowers did last year, but
what I would say is that the recent trends I've seen in drafts is that Loveland is going well ahead of Warren. I've actually seen in quite a few drafts Warren falling to the second round.
Woof.
So I'm seeing that more and more. Loveland is moving to the second. Warren is moving to the second round, and there's a bit of uncertainty there. I think if he falls to the second round, he's an absolute steal. But yeah, I think for me, he's a top 5 tight end in this league. So I still have Warren above Loveland, but everyone's all in on Loveland, and that's absolutely fine with that.
Then we've got the new Buccaneer, Emeka Egbuka, at 110. This is, absolute stud at the position, but just in a room full of absolute studs at the moment. So it's
but both these guys get injuries, so he's going to get an opportunity, and that Buccaneers offense is good enough to sustain 3 wide receivers. So I think he's going to play a lot. People are questioning where he's going to play. He can play anywhere. This guy can play anywhere across the line. It might start slow for him. I think it will build up nicely. I think you're talking about a player which, depending on opportunities, you're probably looking at wide receiver 3 season, year 1, maybe even a wide receiver 4 season. But we'll get more and more opportunities to go through, especially as, Mike Evans isn't getting any younger and Chris Godwin has had a propensity to have injuries in each of the last few years. So I think you're looking at a player who is going to take a lot of snaps at some point when those guys are out. And I think that one of them will be injured this year because that just tends to be the current trend. So I think he's going to fill in nicely. But if not, he's still going to get plenty of workload, but he's going to be the heir apparent. I just think when you've got teams like the Buccaneers who take wide receivers, you have to take that seriously because every time they pick a wide receiver, they tend to do quite well in the NFL, especially when the draft stock's pretty high. Like,
yeah.
Even Jalen McMillan they took in the 3rd round last year still did pretty well as a fantasy asset, and now he's dust, right? He'll probably get traded. He'll land somewhere great, but yeah, I think Ibuka's going to be a really exciting player to watch in Tampa for sure. And now we're going to come to the one that I have some real questions over.
Well, I was going to say we've got 2 names left in the first round: RJ Harvey, Jackson Dart. I'm assuming the Denver running back who's gone to a Sean Payton system. Sean Payton said that this was his guy. Sean Payton running backs tend to do quite well, and Jackson Dart, who you did project to go in the first round, Murph, to the New York Jets at 24.
Giants.
Talk to me about Jackson Dart.
Yeah, I talk about this more detail on the Nat Coombs College Days podcast with Ben Isaacson and Dom Corbett, so you can hear my full analysis on him and the scheme fit there. The bottom line is I don't think this is a great fit, and I don't think that the GM and the coach are going to be around in 2026. I do think this could be an ownership pick, and therefore there might be some weight to it. But I think a new GM and a new head coach comes in, and all of a sudden, Jackson Dart is not a thing anymore. I don't see why Brian DeBoer would have made this selection. It doesn't make sense. I think he gets some games this year. I think they're going to have to give him some games, but I think it'll be late in the season. I personally wouldn't play him. I don't think he's anywhere near ready to play in the NFL. I think he's a long way away from playing in the NFL. He needs at least a year, if not a bit longer. And then we look at next year, and people are going to naturally assume he's going to start next year. I'm just not confident. For that to happen, he's going to need Russell Wilson to play out of his skin to keep the current coaching staff in play. And then if Russell Wilson plays out of his skin, he's going to get a new contract.
Yeah.
I don't see the scenarios that other people do. And fair play, if you've got a scenario where you think they clean house and the new guy's going to come in and he's going to be told that he's got to start Jackson Dart, then fair play. I don't see that happening. They've got their first round pick next year. They didn't pay a whole lot for this pick. So I think they can get out of it. And they could go in free agency. Actually, did they give up their 2026 first? I can't remember. God, I can't remember this trade now. You're going to have to look it up.
You look it up.
They traded a second round pick. So they traded 34 and 99. So that's fine. And a third round selection next year. So yeah, they still have their first round pick next year. So they could, if they have a really bad season, they could still go and get a quarterback next year in the draft. They could go and get one in free agency. If we look at Vegas win records, I remember seeing them in the bottom 6.
What, in projected?
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Let me pull up the latest odds.
Brought to you by FanDuel.
It's probably not FanDuel. This is terrible audio.
Yeah.
So they are projected to have the second worst record in the
Feels
NFL.
like a pretty cheap pick then, if that would be the case.
Yeah.
If all goes Pete Tong, then you've got Jackson Dart, and if it does go terribly Pete Tong, you've ideally potentially.
I'm going to give you the FanDuel because you asked for FanDuel. Their over-under line is set at 5.5 wins.
I'm taking the under on that.
I even think even if they hit 6, I still don't think that's great. Like, I still think 6 wins, you're picking in the top 10. So I still like the realms of possibility of them taking a quarterback next year in the draft is quite high. Like, this is what I mean. I can't pay even a late round first. I can't pay that on Jackson Dart. It's too much uncertainty. I think he has landed in a really tricky position where I said in March that if he landed on the Rams and sat behind Stafford for a year, that gives him the platform for success in the NFL. Because you know that he's going to go to a competent offense. It's going to be there. The coaching staff are going to be there well. Les Snead's going to be there a while. If they had taken him in, say, the second round, the Rams, you play Matt Stafford this year, there's question marks as to whether he stays long term anyway. And you move up to Jackson Dart, that would have made a lot of sense to me. I'd have been all in on Jackson Dart at this range. But with the Giants, I'm not there. So I'd be out on him here for sure. RJ Harvey, I at the 112, I get it. I like it a lot. I've seen some drafts where he's been going at the 1.8, 107, 1.9 range. So I think if you can get him here, I'm a big fan. I probably have one other player I'm probably taking above him, but I don't hate it. Like, I think I'm fine with this selection.
Okay. Well, I'll read the second round out, and then you tell me who it was that you fancied above RJ Harvey. So 2-1, we got Caleb Johnson. 2-2, Jaden Higgins. 2-3, Luther Burden. 2-4, Jack Beck. Okay. 2-5, Cam Skatibo. 2-6, Jaden Blue. 2-7, Trey Harris. 2-8, Matthew Golden. That feels very cheap. 2-9, Jalen Milroe. 2-10, Shadur Sanders. That feels expensive. 2-11, Bashan Tutul. And 2-12, Jalen Knoll.
Yeah, I imagine the Sanders, a lot of his ADP is being driven by pre-draft, people that do their rookie drafts before the NFL draft, and there is a number out there. And I do think that this is being driven a little bit by that number. I don't think he's a player that people are taking in this range anymore and haven't for quite some time. If they are, then I am, good luck. They see something I don't, so that's fine. The player I had in mind was Luther Burden. I probably have Luther Burden over RJ Harvey. That's a polarizing pick. I get it. It's fine. I don't have a massive problem here. I think Matthew Golden is going a little higher in drafts. I'm seeing him go like at the top of the second. I haven't really seen him go much in the first. There's some people that are really out on Matthew Golden. It's almost trendy to be out on Matthew Golden. I don't get it. People talk about crowded room. I think cream rises to the top. I think if you're good enough and you earn the targets, you're going to get the ball. I think that's been proven over the NFL over the last 20, 30 years, if not longer, that if he is the superstar that they believe he's going to be, then he's going to get the football. So I just don't buy this whole it's a crowded room argument as much as other people do. Again, and that's fine. I'm not here to change opinions, right? I'm just here to lay out what I think, and you can agree and disagree. And I don't think anyone is wrong in their thinking. I'm just laying out what I think. And you either subscribe to that or you don't. And I am wrong, 45% of the time. So, it's not it's not an argument that needs to be had that you sort of get really angry about either way. It's just an opinion, right? I think for me that Golden is better value here and he's going high. I think the other one is Trey Harris. I think he's going in the first half of the second round, and I do like him there. I think the big faller for me here, the one I think that is Caleb Johnson's been sneaking into first rounds of drafts Yeah, I'm not sure I'm quite there. I think there's a good player in there for sure, but I think that feels expensive. I think if you're getting him, I'd rather be getting him sort of a bit later here, but I imagine that's not happening. Um, yeah, I don't think this is massively off. The other one is I don't think you're seeing a lot of Jalen Milroe in the second. I think there's some. I think he's a really polarizing player. I think some drafts have him going at this range and some have him not. I think he's fine at this price. I don't have a problem at this price here at all. I'm pretty much fine. I think the only player I'm kind of not in at all is Shooter Sanders. I think Jaden Blue is probably a little expensive. Not too expensive. I'd probably move him back a few picks, and I'd probably move Tootin up a few picks. It's kind of where I'm at, but I don't think it's a bad ADP.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I picked Jaden Blue up as a free agent in a rookie draft I just did.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk some third then. We've got Tyler Shuck at 301, Dylan Sampson, that was the other Cleveland Browns running back, Murph, at 3-2, Jalen Lane at 3-3, Jalen Royals at 3-4, Woody Marks at 3-5, Gunnar Helm at 3-6, Terrence Ferguson at 3-7, Elijah Arroyo at 3-8, so a big tight end run there, Devin Neal at 3-9, Pat Bryant at 3-10, Kyle Monangai
Monangai or Manangai?
Monangai.
Yeah.
Manangai. All right, Kyle Manangai, running back for Chicago at 3-11, and then 3-12, Jordan James, running back, San Francisco. Any names in this that tickle your pickle?
I mean, I think Shook starts a lot of games this year based on what we're hearing with the injuries here. So, I don't mind a third round pick if he does well and holds the job. He's a value here, so I don't hate that. I've been seeing him sneak into the second. I think Sampson is well overpriced here. I don't think I want to touch him this high. He for me feels more closer to a late third, fourth round pick here. Similar with sort of Jalen Lane. I think you're talking about. I don't see his ceiling. They've just traded for Deebo Samuel. They've got Scary Terry. They've got a pretty fire offense. I don't see Jalen Lane getting consistent touches in the NFL, so I'm not quite there. Royals, everyone's in on because of KC. Yeah, I mean, we see this a lot, but I mean, we'll see. I don't hate it. I'm fine, but I also am not running to the podium for that. Woody Marks, I think, is overpriced. I don't think he's going to get much there at this stage. Gunnar Helm, I'd probably have the other tight ends ahead of him. I'd probably have Ferguson ahead of him. Maybe even, there's more pounding the table for Mason Taylor, but I'm not as convinced by him just on the volume. There's a world, I don't think in the current ADP he's in there. His ADP is just a bit wild, but it has been climbing quite consistently. So this is where some of this data is a little out of date. I'd probably say that you'll get in this run here, probably less Gunnar Helm and probably more Mason Taylor. I think people are really sort of pushing out a little bit on Gunnar Helm. But I probably would be more inclined to take Gunnar Helm than I would Mason Taylor. I just don't see the volume in New Jersey. Yeah, Devin Neal. There's a role for him for sure. People are really clambering him and like him. I think there's a usage pattern for him. Pat Bryant, I think, is a great steal. I think Monangai is a bit overpriced here. I think he's a fourth round player. But mind you, 311, I don't hate it. If you're sort of at this point now where you just want to get players who can get touches, he could get the RB2 job there, and that's quite valuable in Chicago. Jordan James at the 312 is wild. He's just Jordan. It's just because it's a Kyle Shanahan pick. So I don't have him anywhere near this range. I think that is just stupid.
Stupid. Yeah, there's in no world do I see that ever coming across some of the players we're about to mention. Okay, fourth round, we've got Alec Ayomanar. I've seen him basically free in drafts, which is crazy to me how good he was in college. Will Howard at 4-2, Isaac Tislar at 4-3, Dylan Gabriel at 4-4, Ja'Cory Merritt 4-5, Orunde Gadsden at 4-6, Prashad Smith at 4-7, Trevor Etienne at 4-8, who's potentially now a lot higher with the Brooks news. Yeah, Cam Miller at 4-9, Taj Brooks at 4-10, Damian Martinez at 4-11, and Troy Horton rounding off the fourth round.
I noticed there's a player missing on this list, and I don't know why he's fallen off the list. But Carl Williams is a player we should be talking about here. And sort of, I've seen him be going late second, third round, but he wasn't on this compiled list. Maybe that's just user error. I didn't put him on, but I'd say I'm yet to see who is going to break out of that room. There's a lot of young players with Diggs there. A third round, I'd probably take a shot. I'm not sure I'm taking him in the second round. But the third round is a dart. It's fine. I'd probably more like Pat Bryant. This fourth round is what is interesting. And I think, to be honest, the ADP in fourth rounds is messed up. It kind of is. You got to remember a lot of drafts end at 3 rounds and don't have fourth rounds. I don't really see a lot of consistency in this fourth round number. I like Will Howard, the value here. I think he could go and play early. I don't like Dylan Gabriel at all. Isaac Tesla, I mean, people are drafting him because he's on a good offense. I get it. I probably wouldn't do it. I'd much rather have Iomanor. Questions on the injury here, but going to Tennessee, there's not a lot of talent to beat out. I think he can earn targets there quite early. Merritt, he stuck behind 2 runners. Yes, Austin Eckler's getting older, but maybe there's something. I think you're better off looking at Smith or Brooks or even Martinez. Would probably be more inclined to shoot for. Gadsden, yeah, I don't know. There's a role there for him, but again, I'd probably have Mason Taylor over him. As a Smith, ETN makes sense now. I guess in that room there's a pathway for him, so I like the value you can get on an ETN here. Cam Miller, I'm not taking. I don't think there's anything here for him, but I love Taj Brooks at 410. I think that's great value if you can get him in that range. Martinez is a punt range, but I don't know. There's a couple of players here which, again, I'm thinking of players that haven't been really picked up here. Harold Fannin hasn't been taken on this list. He's really fallen like a stone because of the draft capital. He's in Cleveland. He's behind David Njoku. There's a role there. He'd be a player I'd be looking at in this sort of fourth round for sure. I'd probably, if I'm looking at I wouldn't take Torrey Holton here. I don't think there's much here for him. There's room for him to get targets, but I'd much rather take someone like Ollie Gordon, for example, out of Miami running back. I think there's some space there for him. I think I'd much rather be taking running backs here. It's Giddins here of Indianapolis. He's one that you could look at. I think there's quite a few players here that I'd probably rather take here over these sort of bottom 2 players. But yeah, don't sleep on Taj Brooks. I really like him and think that he can earn a role for sure here in the NFL with the Bengals. And I think it's a good fit.
Yep. Yeah. I'm just trying to think how many fourth rounds I've done. Maybe 2. No more. Potentially.
I got a few. I'm just trying to pull some actual data up that's finished or near finish. Let's have a look. Yeah, I've got one here that's about to finish. So I'll read out the 4th and 5th round picks here. So Tez Johnson, Kyle Williams went at the 4-2. I think that's probably a bit low. Dylan Sampson 4-3, Riley Leonard. I mean, I hate that pick in so many ways. You might as well give the pick away. Riley Leonard is not going to play a game in the NFL. We're certainly not going to play be anywhere near fantasy relevant. He's landed on the roster, and again, I recommend when this Nat Coombs College Days podcast comes out, if you want to know more about quarterbacks, listen to the show and listen to what I got to say, because Riley Leonard is just the same as Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. It's like they've drafted a player who's very similar, which is fine. It shows that, hey, scheme fit wise, this kind of makes sense. But they got two guys in front of him.
Yeah.
That are better than him. Like, yeah, he's a quarterback 3 in any sense of the world. So, like, he went before Will Howard, which is just, that blows my mind that Riley Leonard goes before Will Howard in the draft. Like, genuinely, I don't get that. Like, I'm taking Will Howard. There is a world that Will Howard starts week 1.
I know.
It will take a lot, but it can happen. I don't see a world that Riley Leonard ever starts a week 1. Anyway. But Howard Fannin went in that league at the 409, which I think is a wild price. I'm in at the 409 there.
Oh, me too. With Njoku's injury history.
Savion Williams at 412, don't love that. Dylan Gabriel 411, don't love that. Typhoon, I mean, you're taking shots. Like, it's hard to kill any real pick. Troy Horton went at the 5-1, Gunnar Helm 5-4. Jarquez Hunter, he's an interesting player to look at, but I think he's a bit too buried.
I loved him in college.
Yeah. So it is interesting. Still unpicked. So I'm on the clock. I'm on deck in this league. And Monagai and Etienne are still on the board at the 5-6. I'm 5-7, so I'll be getting one of them in that league.
Nice.
The other the other leagues that have gone 4-5 round again: Tez Johnson, Ollie Gordon, Jordan James, Taj Brooks, Kyle Monaghan, Jalen Milroe went in the 4-6, which is, I think, phenomenal value. Troy Horton, Gunnar Helm, Trevor Etienne, Damian Martinez, Shadur Sanders at the 4-11. Jacko Kroksky went at the 4-12. Ty Felton, Isaac Tesla, Dante Thornton. That's what's gone in these late rounds. And like, you can't kill anyone because ultimately you're just picking a dart throw, right? You just got to try and find someone that's going to hit.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We crack on, but it's like, this is a fun time of year. There's not much you can really sort of criticize anyone for the sort of picks that we're talking about here. But I would say that, you know, I wouldn't be taking wide receiver in round 4 or 5. The hit rate is far too low. It's just not there.
Agreed. It's a pick 'em and see at this point, 4th round. So you want that upside to be with your handcuffs and stuff, not randoms.
Yeah, 100%.
Super smashing, great, big man. Enjoyed that. Anything else before we jet?
What I would say is that my projections are available on Patreon. So if you do want to sign up to the Patreon, so it's patreon.com/5yard rush. You sign up, be a member for £3 a month. You get access to my projections as they are right now. There are 903 players and DSTs in there because I've done IDP. It's one of the most comprehensive projection lists out there. 903 players is a lot. I will say it was posted after the George Pickens trade, but before the
Jonathan Brooks.
No, I'd never had him in my rankings projections. Jadeveon Clowney. So I need to make a small tweak, but the sheet will just update. So as it updates, you'll get access. So yes, that's there. I also posted as part of the Patreon just some of the numbers from the PAS, which is the points against streaming metric, which is in our playbook, which will be coming out soon.
Oh, I was going to say, should we tell him, Murph? Should we tell him? And you did.
Let's tell him.
That's right, Rush Nation. We are bringing out a long overdue version of the 5-yard rush playbook. If you are new to 5-yard, Murph and I produce a book of knowledge and insight. I think it's a good way of putting it out there, Murph. Murph does all the tactical, statistical, brainiac side, and then I come in and just color up some of the rookies that I think might be good. And that's I I look at the rookies before they join the NFL because it would be too much work for me to do it after the NFL draft. So I give you my take on them before the NFL draft, and then Murph projects them how he sees them after they join the NFL. So you get both sides of the coin from both our point of views, which I think is quite nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you, I guess we've got a couple of minutes. I'll just quickly read out the table of contents of what's included in this year's. So there is a research study over the last 5 years of the increase of injuries in fantasy football and the impact that has in strategy. Another think piece going back 12, 13 years worth of data, the rise and decline of elite performance for running backs in fantasy football. Is it on the rise again heading into 2025? So a bit of an essay style, but a lot of strategy and data in there. You'll also have access to all of the data that I use to compile that piece in there. I then touch upon positive touchdown regression candidates and negative touchdown regression candidates. Touchdowns are quite a fluky thing. They're much harder to project than yardage and receptions. And so we look at people that are overperformed and underperformed in touchdown metrics, and where there could be a natural bounce back in 2025, one way or the other. We talk about value-based drafting, which is kind of the Bible of how to draft, how to obtain value in drafts, what to look for, how to sort of set yourself up for success when you're drafting. A piece by popular request, which was stats that matter and where to find them. People always ask me, where do you get stats from? What do I need to do and look for? So I've compiled all of that together in a chapter with some links. Introduction to Dynasty Fantasy Football and things you need to know. If you've never played, you're scared of it, haven't played for too long, it's a good overview to that. An introduction into IDP, what's changed, why you should play IDP. That's a really good piece because I think everyone should play IDP, but not everyone does. I also do an introduction to auction leagues as well because they're a lot of fun, so you should definitely do that. How to make your home leagues better. We had some great guests last year. I've taken some of the tidbits that they provided, put that into a chapter. Then the points against streaming metric. So the points against streaming metric is really important because what it's doing is it's telling you the value of each position in the NFL, and it's telling you, more importantly, what positions you can stream effectively and which ones you need to draft at a significant rate. And that means high position and lots of them. So that's really important, and it's a good piece of research, and all the data behind that is in there. So there's loads of stuff in here. All the positive regression, negative regression data is in there. All the projections of 903 players and DSTs. They're not in the print form like they were previously. They're going to be linked and accessed. So in there, you've got... Thanks, Rob. So rather than the previous years where we did the projections in the book, the problem with that is as things change, there's no update. And that's kind of one of the really hard things. What we're doing this year is just access to the sheet itself. So as it updates, as I make an update, I will update that sheet, and then you will have up-to-date projections within a few days of incidents, injuries, etc., up until the start of the season. So you will have up-to-date rankings within a few days, and I'll start to mark when I last updated them. So it's quite a good, it's more live, which is what's good. But a lot of the research data and tools are in there. So thank you, Rob, for buying in the past. It's a couple of years due to health issues and timings and things, but we're really excited to bring this back. It's going to be, it's been a labor of love. It's, I don't know, 40, 50,000 words, I think, between us, but it's definitely we're on finishing touches, and I can't wait to get it out there for everyone.
I think it's closer to 80,000 words, Murph, because I think I've done 45 on my own.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think you've done yourself a disjustice there. But yeah, we came up with the idea of putting QR codes in for all of Murph's projections and stats and stuff, because as they change, it doesn't change in the print form. So you'll be able to scan the QR code with your device and just get straight into the live Murphisms of projections and stuff, which is good because, you know, we appreciate people buying the books, but if something massive happens, it doesn't really help them when they've got it in paper form. So
yeah, I think that's one of the learnings, and it's kind of hard to find a way to do that. I think I found a way through G Drive to do this. So the biggest challenge to it is that I guess I don't really need to explain it here. I explain it in the book, is make a copy. So one of the cool things about the projections is, and this is something that I've borrowed from someone, thankfully, is there's a league's settings, so you can actually customize the projections to your league or to any particular league you're playing in. So what's great is it's not just a list of projections and it's based on 1 point PPR, half point PPR. If you're in a really funky charity league with loads of unique scoring, you can actually tailor the scoring specifically to the league you're in.
And that in itself is a marvelous reason to go out and buy the playbook.
Yeah, so it's a big piece of work, but it's it's about done. I think it's finishing touches, but all the projections are pretty much done. I've got to change Clowney, I think, and that is so I might have to find someone else to put in so it stays at 903. But yeah, it's a labour of love, but it's good, and we're looking forward to bring that out. I don't know what the release date's going to be. It will be hopefully May. I think we're talking about this month.
Yeah, it'll definitely be this month. We can basically we've got to collate all the data together now. We've got it all. We've just got to put it together in a PDF and get it out. It's not going to be, obviously we don't have a website anymore, so it's going to be available on Amazon to print as per usual. Fingers crossed, all goes well with the KDP. And
we can sell through Patreon as a one-off item.
Can we?
Yeah.
Interesting. Did not know that.
So we can actually sell the PDF version through Patreon.
Okay.
But if you buy directly through iOS on Patreon, it's more because iOS charges significantly more. So we will advise when it comes out. We'll advise people where they can download, where they can purchase as one-off. So you don't even need to be a member of the Patreon. Although if you are a member, you get a copy of it because you're supporting, you're paying and supporting the podcast. So, the quickest, easiest way is to be a member of the Patreon, patreon.com/5yardrush, and you get access to our WhatsApp chat, you get access to everything. But you get a copy of the playbook for the digital version, but we will sell the digital version as a one-off on the Patreon. So you can just buy it and download it.
Marvelous. Didn't know that. Happy days. There you go. Right, Rush Nation, we hit you with a info dump at the end of the podcast. Thank you for hanging with us. We appreciate each and every one of you. Playbook's out soon. I am so stoked. Fantasy football season is well and truly here. Let's not mess about. Let's start piling up those ships in the docks before we've even made June. I've decided, let's call the ships in right now. Get the lighthouses going, Rush Nation. That's going to do it for the end of this week's show. As always, don't forget, keep rushing.